Vasishta continued. Yoga is getting rid of the poison of desire. I have already dealt with it, and I shall tell you again so that it may be very clear. So yoga is about getting rid of desire, the poison of desire. We've heard this so many times that it's almost a cliche, and we're probably thinking, yes, I'll go along with that, of course. Let's get on with the juicy parts. We all know we don't want desire. Vasishta's already made it clear, but he's going to tell us again about it. There's a lot of repetition in the Yoga Vasishta, and this might seem a bit tedious and unnecessary, but we have to keep looking at it afresh. And we have to connect with what is meant by desire here. We tend to think of desire as just a craving for objects or other people. But what is desire on a personal level? What is desire for you right now? I'm suffering from toothache at the moment, so an obvious desire for me is for the toothache to go away. I've done what can be done about it, and it's still there. So the desire will more than likely manifest in a wish for me to be in a condition other than what I am. So this is how my desire is manifesting right now. And I allow that particular desire to fuel a certain negative and constricted mental attitude, mental and emotional attitude. So when we hear this kind of statement about desire, we have to look into the immediate reality of it. If you're not actually centered in the supreme peace of pure consciousness, then you're caught up in desire of some kind, and you can probe into that. So desire is actually a way of finding our way back to pure consciousness. But in the next paragraph we're back to desire as it's normally understood. That is, desire for an object. Even if you desire to have something, there is nothing other than the self. What would you desire? This goes back to the question of ownership. Ownership is a social and legal understanding. It's like money. It's only got value because we agree it's got value. But when it gets back down to it, how can you actually own anything? I think this was something the American Indians learnt when they encountered the white people. They didn't have any concept of ownership. It probably seemed absurd. Apart from a legal and social agreement, how can you actually own something? What does it mean? Consciousness is subtle like space and indivisible. That itself is this world. How do you desire and what? There are no objects which can be desired. Here consciousness is manifest as the world. There's nothing except consciousness. Consciousness is manifest as the world. Consciousness is your essential nature. There is nothing in the world outside your essential nature. So there are no objects which can be desired. We do not see either if there is a distinction and relationship between gain of an object and its possessor. How is an unreal substance gained? Who has obtained a black moon? It's a bit like having dreamt about something. Maybe you dreamt about a nice place last night or a nice house. Or perhaps you dreamt about a unicorn, and the next day you decide that you want it and you're going to devote your life to it. Well, that would be rather nonsensical, wouldn't it? But the objects that we fabricate in our dreams are essentially of the same nature as the objects we contrive to experience in the so-called waking state. This is something which has been explored in depth already. So it's just like obtaining a black moon. When thus the nature of the gain and its possessor is clearly understood, we do not know where they disappear. Well, we realize their notional nature. When you're in touch with your own consciousness, its reality becomes apparent, and the reality of the notions which up to this point we've adhered to and believed in begins to dissolve. When the distinction between the seer, sight and the seen is also seen to be non-existent, the ego sense, etc. are merged in the self or consciousness. We have to be careful about this talk of merging. It's a bit like an illusion, a mirage. Once you realize something is a mirage, it doesn't disappear or merge into anything. You're just not taken in by it anymore, and you're no longer caught up or duped by it. So when the distinction between the seer, sight and the seen, I think really what this means is the seer, the sight and the seeing. There's no distinction between the seer, the sight and the seeing. There's only the seeing going on. The seer and the sight are notions which we create afterwards. So they don't merge. It's just no longer relevant. We're no longer duped by these notions into giving them some kind of independent reality. We're no longer duped by the notion of a seer, somebody who's seeing, and an object is something that's seen. There's only the seeing going on, and that doesn't belong to anybody. There isn't anybody for it to belong to. So there's no merging. There's just a consolidation of our establishment in the self, or in consciousness's realization of itself. In nirvana or liberation there is no seer, nor sight, nor seen. When the latter exists, there is no nirvana. The latter never exists, it's only the notional. It's only the belief in the notions that exists. The illusory appearance of objects is of no practical use. A shell that looks like silver has no cash value. Well, it's got no practical use from a spiritual point of view. Clearly we need these notions to get by on a particular level, but intrinsically there's no spiritual value to notions. When you affirm the reality of the illusory appearance, you invite unhappiness. When its unreality is realized, there is great happiness. When you realize that everything is just notions that we've agreed are real, then you can be free. You can still play the game of notions. You can still engage with it, but it's not what's real. It's not what's at the heart of your being. And that's what you need to have a look at. What's at the heart of your being? What is it exactly that's free of notions?